Matthias Corman, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Here in Berlin, you come from German-speaking Belgium. You obviously have an affinity with this part of the world. I mean, what does it mean for you today to see the ties between Australia and Germany strengthened in the way they have been?
Well, Germany obviously is a very important country in the world. It's the fourth biggest economy in the world, the biggest economy in Europe. Europe as a bloc is still the biggest economy in the world, and obviously Germany is a very important country at the heart of Europe. So from my point of view as a minister in the Australian government with a German-speaking background, it's a real privilege to be able, I guess, to deploy my background for the benefit of Australia.
And you were asked to tap into this through the Germany-Australia Advisory Council that a year ago was put together and today has handed its report to the two leaders. What are the key recommendations as far as you're concerned?
Well, the key conclusion that we reached is that there is a lot of opportunity to broaden, strengthen and deepen the relationship between Australia and Germany. We do historically have a friendly relationship. We do have in Australia nearly 1 million Australians with German backgrounds, so there's a strong historical connection. But it's quite surprising. There wasn't actually that much structured interaction between Australia and Germany at a strategic level.
And now there will be.
One of the key recommendations out of our report, which has been adopted by the Prime Minister and by the German Chancellor, is to have an annual, regular 2+2 dialogue, like a dialogue between our foreign and defence ministers and the German foreign and defence ministers. So that will start in 2016, and it certainly will give a lot of structure to the engagement at a strategic level between Australia and Germany.
The Prime Minister is also pretty keen to build on innovation links between Australia and Germany. Tony Abbott actually cut funding to NICTA, the National IT Foundation hub in Australia. Malcolm Turnbull signalling that he will put some of that money back in.
Well, innovation, of course, in Australia will be the centrepiece of our economic success moving forward. There will be an innovation statement later this year before Christmas. And certainly, I mean, Germany is very good at translating high-quality research into successful commercial applications. In Australia, we're very good at conducting high-quality, world-class research, but perhaps we're not as good as we could be.
And this body's important in doing that,
when it comes to translating into commercial sort of applications. And I guess we are looking through the work that we've done with the Germans to learn from the German experience about how we can better translate high-level, high-quality research into commercial applications.
This body, though, is one that Angela Merkel visited a year ago when she was in Australia. Was it an embarrassment to be cutting the funding to it?
She did indeed, and it is a successful part of the Australian, obviously, research and development and commercial application network. It is now part of the
your call to cut the funding, though, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, you can go to this. Today is a very exciting day, and obviously there's a lot of strengthened cooperation that will be happening between Australia and Germany as a result of the work that we've been doing, including in relation to obviously ICT, the information and communication technology area, and it will be done through the CSIRO.
Now, Germany is the powerhouse economy in Europe. You've spoken in the past about the idea of a free trade agreement between Australia and Europe, the EU. How hard would that be, though? What are the prospects of this actually happening?
Well, we have been having a series of meetings with European institutions in recent months. We've been having meetings with the European Commission, and the European Commission in the middle of October identified Australia as one of the next countries with whom they would seek to negotiate a free trade agreement with. Australia is a trading nation. We want to increase the level of trade, and Europe obviously is a great opportunity for us, having successfully negotiated free trade agreements with China, Japan and South Korea. Europe is certainly one of our next priorities, and we're very hopeful that very soon there'll be some announcements in relation to this.
You're off to the G20 with the Prime Minister tomorrow. You're representing the Treasurer there. A year ago in Brisbane at the G20, the key outcome was this commitment to boost global growth by 2% over 5 years. Since then, though, we've seen global growth coming off, not going up, it's going down.
Well, the objective in Brisbane was to boost global growth by 2% above business as usual. It was a very important achievement of the Australian presidency of the G20 in 2014, along with the establishment of the Global Infrastructure Hub in Sydney. And of course, G20 countries around the world, representing about 85% of the global economy, committed themselves to action plans in order to achieve that 2% additional growth. If it wasn't for that, we would probably be in a more challenging position.
Is it on track though, do you think?
Well, I'm confident that all countries around the world in the G20 who made commitments to pursue actions and policies to boost growth are well on track to meet
a lot of our
those
commitments, so Australia's commitments haven't been fulfilled, they've been scrapped, some of them.
A lot of our commitments have been fulfilled. I mean, overwhelmingly, our commitments are very much on track. I mean, yes, I mean, you always see adjustments at the margins. You'll always see, obviously, any government will always respond to changing circumstances, and that's certainly what we're doing.
A couple of issues back home. This story from the book written by Peter Van Olsen and Wayne Errington about the first budget, the first Abbott Hockey Corman budget, the 2014 budget, and this $80 billion in, not proceeding in $80 billion in increased spending on health and education. A big issue at the time, and according to the book, Tony Abbott did not want this appearing in the budget documents. Joe Hockey inserted it in defiance to show that he was being tough on the spending front. Is that what happened? Is that your recollection?
Well, you don't expect me to talk about internal Cabinet and Expenditure Review Committee deliberations, but let me just make this point. We, of course, made a commitment in the lead up to the 2013 election to keep the same funding envelope in place for health and for education, which we did. But we also made decisions in our first budget that the spending promises, the unsustainable, unfunded and unaffordable spending growth that Labor locked in. This is an important. You've asked me the question.
I know, but I'm wondering I've got
to answer the question, given that you've asked me. And
I'm asking why the $80 billion figure was put in that glossy brochure.
Well, what I'm saying to you is that we inherited an unfunded, unaffordable, unsustainable, pie-in-the-sky spending growth trajectory in the period beyond the published forward estimates at the time of the last election.
So it was a good idea
in
to
health
put it in
and
there?
education.
Good idea to put that $80 billion in there?
And we made a decision to put funding growth from the Commonwealth on a more realistic, on a more affordable and a more sustainable foundation. Now, you know, who made what decision in relation to which PR publications? I mean, you know, to be frank, I don't think that that'll actually add much to the conversation.
PR
the fundamental point here is
the budget overview.
I'm sure that you know, commentators you know, will dissect all of these things in great detail. Our consideration at the time: how can we ensure that federal funding for health and education, in all areas across government, is on a sustainable foundation for the future.
And a final question on this whole tax debate that's going on back home. Is there any sort of way you can assure people that no one will be worse off, or is that a commitment that you shouldn't be making?
Well, at the moment we are in an open-minded conversation with the Australian people. We're in a good faith conversation with the states and territories about how our tax system can be improved. Our focus is on a stronger growth and better opportunity for people to get ahead, more jobs, and we need a more growth-friendly tax system. We haven't reached any specific landing points yet as to what that will look like moving forward, but obviously we are engaging in the conversation with an open mind.
Matthias Corman, Finance Minister, thank you for joining us here in Berlin.
Always good to talk to you.